They accepted nomination, and then now they've been confirmed as part of that NEC. Professor Fikeni is here to talk a little bit about that. Good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning to you and your viewers.
Thank you for joining us. Were you surprised by some of the names that appeared on the official NEC for the next 5 years?
Well, a bit surprised, but in terms of the trends, not surprised. For example, the return of some people who had served under Thabo Mbeki's cabinet, who had since more or less disappeared from the political scene. Thoko Didiza, Mthembu Mahanyele, Tito Mboweni was a surprise return in a sense, but also a positive gesture in sense of a leadership mix.
There was a flurry of activity and lots of analysis about the fact that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was top of this list. Did it surprise you that she was top of the list?
Not at all. This is the minister who has moved from one department to the other, performing exceptionally well. And this is the minister who is now at the helm of the AU administration, having received the support and the acclamation from across the society itself as well as the continent. So to that extent, if any woman in future is a woman to be considered for the top position or contested, it is likely to be any person, but Nkosazana Zuma would be one of the names.
Who runs the ANC in the intervening 5-year period? Who makes decisions? How is the NEC influential? What does it mean if you sit on that really big group of people on that committee?
Very important, Vuyo, because you do have the NEC meeting more regularly in between the 5 years and therefore has delegated responsibility. And within the NEC itself, the National Working Committee is going to be selected. The top 6, of course, is the one that would meet almost every week or every other second week. But the NEC itself is a highest decision-making body in between conferences, save the National General Council and the Policy Conference.
And when you look at this NEC, when you look at the names, we've mentioned Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, you've talked about Thoko Didiza, Tony Yengeni is in there as well, among others, Pule Mabi, Treasurer General previously of the ANC Youth League, some saying, well, he's being rewarded for the stance that he has taken. What are your thoughts about those kinds of names?
Well, without any doubt, Tony Yengeni has been quite prominent and being given the responsibility of heading the political education program up to this point. So his visibility, his prominence in that sense was recognized right across. Then if you talk of Pule Mabe as well as, Zizi Godwa, it's one of the people you'd say for standing against the tide within the Youth League, standing for continuity of the current leadership. They are being recognized and rewarded for such.
Just looking at some of the ministers that didn't make it, Dipuo Peters of the Northern Cape didn't make it onto this NEC and a few others. What does that mean? Does that mean that they will not continue as ministers, or will they continue in those positions?
Mainly they'll continue. Remember that at any given time, half or 40% of the ministers are not in the NEC, and that has been the case in the past. It's been the case under Thabo Mbeki, Nelson Mandela administration, and it will continue to be so. Remember, people serve in the pleasure of the president, but also many of those are members of parliament, which is a critical factor. The one other, notable absence there is the chief whip in parliament, Matole Motshekga. That in itself should come as a political blow to him because it signifies and signals so many things.
He might not be chief whip going forward?
If you have no constituency to back you up, the probability of you being removed at some point increases.
Just looking at the NEC in its totality, does it give you confidence? Does it give you confidence to deliver on the vision of unity? Does it give you confidence that it can drive the programs that have been outlined here at conference to achieve particularly those 3 challenges, joblessness, poverty, and the other scourges that continue to afflict the millions of people who vote for the ANC?
It's never the entire NEC, which is quite huge in a sense, that drives those processes. It's the signal right from the top. If the President, the Secretary General, and probably the top 6 are passionate and live that dream of unity. The message is signaled and is sent through the whole system. You could have an NEC that wants unity. If the top 6 is not so sure about it, then it won't happen. So it is right at the top. Then the message permeates to the NEC, permeates to the provinces and the branches. And also the deployment committees do have a bigger role, because how they deploy people who might be seen not necessarily to agree with everything, but of course being loyal, that in itself is a message that they can send.
2 questions. What now for Tokyo Sehwale, Fikile Mbalula, Matthew Posa, and then, I've been trying to think, just in real terms, what has actually happened here in Mangaung? What has happened here?
What has happened in Mangaung is that it looks like many branches have signified that they have no appetite for another Polokwane contestation, and therefore those who were calling for change were severely punished in many ways, literally outmaneuvered and wiped out. For Tokyo, I think the business world is the one that may actually come to his mind, because this is the second time he's trying the higher office, and it's the second time he's being rejected. The second one is Matthew most probably going to business as well, because he has business. Mbalula is young enough to retreat and examine his options and make a comeback.
The ANC Youth League, what now?
The ANC Youth League, if you notice, after Malema was expelled, has been taking more of a pragmatic role, still being radical in its posture, but respectful, and also signaling to the ANC that we are willing to abide by the rules. That in itself, either it's kept at this moment until the end of the term, because that's the resolution they took, and they may stabilize at that, because if you go back now, you may still have a number of instances where there will be infighting. So they may keep the current leadership under Richard Lamola until, you have the next round of elections. But Malema as a factor is no longer looming larger, because he has even challenged the current leadership, which means his political muscle now further diminishes.
Thank you very much, Professor Somadoda Fikeni, talking to us about what has happened here in Mangaung. What, in your view,